I'm a thick bitch, I need tempo. Fuck it up to the tempo. Kitty pat, kitty pat, kitty kitty pat. Look at my ass, it's kitty kitty fat. Kitty cat, kitty cat, kitty kitty cat. Bring me a glass where I like my water wet.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So nice, isn't it? Did you guys like my new intro? I love it. Just kidding. Okay, anyways, so today, as it says in the title, I do get a little deep and into detail about my daddy issues. If you are desperate to find out exactly what I'm talking about, keep watching. It is a very touchy subject, not just for me at this point anymore. At this point I'm like, whatever, I'll talk about it, but for other people I know it's like really, you know, touchy. But I'm here to let the cat out of the bag and just put it on the surface. I am here, an open book. I will talk to you guys about anything, and I just thought that because of this world that we live in nowadays, this is a very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Common issue that goes on in our lives. So stay tuned for a good talk with you guys. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys want to see anything in particular, please feel free to reach out to me. Follow me on Insta and Snapchat to see my daily live because it's so fun. And do not forget to like and subscribe. I love you guys. Enjoy. Okay, so let's get started. So, I'm not sure if most of you or all of you know that the man that my mom is married to now, that is my stepdad. But I see him as my dad because, number one, he raised me. And number two, he has just been the only father figure that has been consistent in my life. So that's my dad. That's all I've ever known. And he did adopt me when I was 9 years old, I want to say. Yeah, no, I'm such a liar. I wasn't 9. That's when they met. He adopted me when I was like 14. I don't know. I have to ask my mom. But yeah, anyways, I need to talk and do this at the same time. So let's go back all the way to the beginning. So in, I want to say it was like 1991. I getting really into depth now. They got married, and my mom had actually gotten pregnant before me, but she had an ectopic pregnancy, which I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's basically like when the baby grows in the fallopian tube, and the fallopian tube are like the little tubes that like drop down your eggs and like whatever. So anyways, so it's not like a normal pregnancy. So obviously she miscarried and they had to remove one of her fallopian tubes. So after that, the doctor had told her that she wouldn't be able to have any more kids. But then I was like, bitch, I'm going to come into this world whether you like it or not. And then there was me. Aww. So yeah, so then my mom got pregnant with me, and I was born November 18th, 1993. And so my dad had his issues. He was a in and out alcoholic. And but when, from, I want to say the whole time my mom was pregnant until I was born, he was sober. Like, that was like the best time my mom had with him. He was sober, they got along, whatever, like everything was perfect. And then I honestly don't know about when it started back up again, like after I was born. But I just know that there were times that like he would say, oh, I'm gonna go to the store. Like, he would ask my mom like what she needed, and ask my sister, because my sister was 14 or is 14 years older than me. So she was like in high school at the time. So he would ask her like, what do you need from the store? And she'd be like, oh, I need paper, for example. So he'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go to the store, I'll be back. And he wouldn't come back for weeks. And so that's how it was. And it was just a very dysfunctional relationship between him and my mom. That's not so much what this video is about, so I'm not going to go into depth about that. But basically, for the first 3 years of my life, he was just in and out, very inconsistent, because he loved the party life and he always wanted to go out and do this and whatever. So when I was 3 in 1996, they got divorced. And to be 150% honest, I really don't remember anything, really. The most I remember after that was after they got divorced, he was dating this new lady, and he would like come and pick me up because it was like his days to have me. I don't know how to turn so you guys can see. And I remember going with him. It was maybe like 2-3 times that he picked me up for me to go and spend time with him. But other than that, like that's really all I remember. Then after that, the only other memory I have is him sending a postcard or like a card with his picture in it, like a really old picture of him in it, telling me how much he loved me and how much he missed me and blah, blah, blah. And that was it. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like, I didn't know about like him making any kind of an effort to spend time with me or to be in my life or anything. Nada. Didn't hear from him, didn't know anything of him. And I kind of like, at that point, it was like in the back of my mind, you know? This is where it starts to get really interesting. So one day I was at, I want to say it was like Marshall's or Ross with my tia, my tío, and my cousin. Hard shape tape under the eyes to conceal and lighten in all the light areas. And then Clinique Chubby Contour Stick, Curvy Contour, whatever it's called. So yeah, we're at the store. My mom was at home or whatever. And so me and my cousin are like walking around, and then all of a sudden I look up and I see my real dad with his new wife. And I'm like, my stomach dropped and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I knew what he looked like, obviously, but like I hadn't seen him in real life like in so many years. So I was just like, oh my gosh, Moni, which is my cousin, I was like, look, it's Willie, whatever, blah blah blah. So I'm like freaking out. So we run over to my tia and I'm like, tia, Willie's here. And she was on the phone with my mom, and so my mom's talking to me and she's just like trying to calm me down, blah 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 blah, blase blase. So then my mom's like, well, are you gonna talk to him? And I was like, I don't know, yes, I don't know. So whatever, I end up going up to him, and I remember me and my cousin are linked arms, and I go up to him and I was like, excuse me, do you know who I am? And he turns around and he looks at me and he's like, you look familiar. And it was at that moment where my heart shattered into like 1,000,001 pieces, because I'm like, you are my father. Like, you helped conceive me, and you see me and you have no idea who I am. I look familiar, like if I'm some fucking third cousin, you know, that like you met years ago and then that was it, you know, like it was just a really fucked up situation. And I told him my name. I was like, I'm Evangeline. And he was like, oh my gosh, blah, blah, blah. Like, I've been praying and I've been wanting to see you, and I've been asking God to put you in my path, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, here I am. You're welcome. Just kidding. But, yeah, so then I stopped him in his tracks, and I was like, I just wanted to say thank you, because if it weren't for you and if you wouldn't have done everything that you did, I wouldn't be living the life I am now. And when I said that, he kind of was just like, what? Like, he certainly was not expecting that. And I was just like, yeah, like, I'm living an amazing life. I have an amazing home, amazing dad, like, family, like, everything is perfect. So thank you. And he was just like, okay. And he's like, well, you know, like, I've been searching for you, this and that, like, God bless you. And I was like, okay. So I walk off, and, like, you know, in the moment I didn't cry. I was just, like, really strong. But I remember, like, my tío was already outside waiting, and, like, with the car right there at the front. And I walk out and get into the car, and I just, like, started crying and crying and crying. It was, like, a very intense experience for me. So then, we ended up running into him and his wife, like, years, well, not years, okay, dramatica, like a couple years later at a Race for the Cure there in El Paso. And it was, like, a really awkward situation too, because I don't know, like, I just hadn't seen him, I hadn't talked to him, and then he just appears, you know, and then he made some comment like, oh, what a small world, or something in Spanish. And my mom was like, yep, it sure is. And so I'm like a nervous fucking wreck again, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna say now? What am I gonna do? Like, why is he here? Oh my gosh, what? So then like, we were standing, I don't know where, and then all of a sudden he comes up to us, and my dad, Carlos, like my stepdad, dad, was right there. And he like, they say hi to each other, everyone's talking, whatever, and then he's like, can I talk to you? And I'm like, okay. And so I honestly don't even really remember what he told me, like what our whole conversation was about. But all I remember is telling him, like, because he kept saying, you know, like, I'm your dad, like, why don't you want to get to know me? And I just told him, like, you're not my dad. Like, my dad is that man standing right there. That's my dad. He's the one that has been there for me. He's the one that I know that has raised me, whatever. And he was just like, you know what, you're right. Like, that is your dad. I'm sorry. Like, I respect him for that. I have all respect for that. That's fine. Like, I respect your decision. And I was like, okay. And so, yeah, that was it. Again, it was just like a very emotional experience for me. Okay, so real quick, I am going in with eyeshadow Morphe 35M. I didn't even show you guys the name, but whoops. It's this palette, really pretty, mixed with shimmers and mattes. But okay, anyways. So yeah, that was that situation. So then after that, like, it was just kind of annoying in the moment, because he had moved to El Paso, and we started running into him, like, everywhere. And it was like at that point in my life where I started realizing, like who is he, you know? Like, I really don't know him. Like, for myself, all I know is what everyone else has told me, like the stories I've heard. And like, one of my brothers was in the military, so he was living over there with him. And and I did, like, end up meeting one of my brothers, one of the ones that didn't live with me. And I started talking to him, but then, I don't know, it just turned into, like, this whole big mess. And, yeah, so since my brother was in the military and my dad was retired military, like, we were always on base, like, going to certain activities or whatever. And so they were always there too. And, like, just seeing them, like, I don't know, like, I was just like, it would trip me out, because I'm like, I'm half that, you know, like, they're part of me. And I just started, like, wanting to know more. But again, I was very prideful, very angry still. And having daddy issues is horrible. I want to cry. I mean, I don't know, everyone is different, but it is like kind of like a cliche when people say like, oh, I have abandonment issues because my dad or my mom left me. It's legit. Like, being in a relationship, you're in constant fear that one day they're just gonna wake up and be like, I don't want to do this anymore. And not even just with relationships, but friendships too, like, or like with anyone, like you constantly are just like scared that they're just gonna be like, oh, you know what, I don't want to be here anymore, I'm gonna leave. And okay, anyways, so yeah, it's just very traumatizing. And you know, like, you don't know how to trust anyone. You're scared to trust anyone. I mean, granted, I've only been in one very serious relationship. Other than that, I've never really been like in a relationship. It's just like talking to people, whatever. But it's also been very easy for me to shut my feelings off, like when I really want to, just because I'm scared of getting attached and you leaving me, you know, like it's just a really fucked up situation. So it was just like, growing up like that, it was just sad, you know, like it was sad to feel that way. And it's not fair to the people who come into your life and have to deal with that just because of what somebody else put you through. And so this is something that I'm realizing like over all this time, right? And so that's when like I started dating my ex. And like with her especially, like, I mean, granted, it was a hella fucked up relationship regardless, but my point is that, like, from even when we first started, like I have a very like obsessive personality, and I'm just like, no, but I don't want to do this because I don't want you to leave me, you know, like, or like trying to overcompensate just to try and get them to not leave you. Like, it's just, oh, it's so bad. And so throughout my relationship with her, like, I started noticing all of that, and that's when I brought it to the surface. And I'm like, I have these issues because I was left, like. But after that, like, as I started bringing it to the surface and going to therapy and reading up on it and, you know, talking to other people, everyone always tells you, like, it's not your fault, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. But it really takes for you to go through it, and for you to, like, you have to go through the steps on your own. You have to realize it on your own, because everyone can tell you that it's not your fault, but you have to go through that whole step of anger and sadness and just like all of those feelings for you to be like, what the fuck? Like, and really realize your self-worth. Like, there isn't anything wrong with me. Like, you had no reason to leave me, and they didn't leave you. Like, they have their own issues, you know? So as I started getting older, you know, I started realizing this. And so I more and more wanted to have a relationship with him. And so I think he added me on Facebook. This was like back in 2014 maybe. But it was so weird because he added me, but like he wouldn't write to me or anything. And I would be like, why do you have me on Facebook if you're not even going to talk to me? Hello. Which is like half of my friends on Facebook. But anyways, that's besides the point. Fake. Just kidding. So, so then that's when, okay, so we had each other on Facebook for a while. And like here and there, he would like comment on my stuff and like, oh, que bella, blah, blah, blah. And little comments like that, like as dumb to other people as it may be, like that meant the world to me because, oh, it makes me want to cry. because for so long I was invisible to him, you know, like I felt like he hadn't reached out to me. He hadn't tried to make an effort to have contact with me, nothing. So even just those little comments, it was like, wow, you know, like it put so much happiness in my heart because I was his daughter, you know, like, how annoying. Okay, anyways, back to being a boss ass bitch. But yeah, and also it was really hard having him on Facebook because he had moved to Florida, and that's where the rest of my siblings were. So to see him posting with them and like them having group activities, like that shit was hella hard because I'm like, okay, hello, like you have another kid too, you know? But again, they like, now I understand because they were raised together and I was raised by myself, and that's how the cookie crumbled, you know? So I had to learn how to not take everything so personal and realize that not as much as I want it to be, not everything is about me, you know? Almost everything, but not everything. But yeah, so that was really hard too. But then in 2015 is when one of my brothers started getting really sick, and they told me that he had cancer. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And so at that point, like I slowly started having my siblings all on Facebook. So like they were the ones like reaching out to me and keeping me posted as to what was going on, whatever. And so when I found out that my brother was sick, I was like trying to make a conscious effort to go over there to see him. And at that time, I think when he lived in Massachusetts. Yeah, I want to say. Or no, I think he was still in Florida, like at that time. But later on, when he got really sick is when they moved him upstate. But yeah, so when I found out that he had first gotten sick, like that's when I was like, I really started like dealing with my issues. I'm like, okay, bitch, like this is your family. That's your blood. Like you have to just put your big girl panties on and just go out there, you know? But with work and like financially, I was really struggling to buy a ticket to go out there. So, but then they had told me like, oh no, like he's getting better. Like, you know, he was getting his eyesight back because he had started losing it, whatever. And so I was like, okay, thank God, like just keep me posted. So then in 2016, like late 2016, they started telling me like, no, like he's getting really bad again and he had cancer. And like it just started eating him up. And I was like, fuck. So like I was trying to get time off of work, and my parents were like, you know what, like we'll help you with the ticket, like you pay half or whatever. And I was like, okay. So we were like looking into it, whatever. And literally like from one day to the next, I remember I was on my way to work and I got a call from my dad, my real dad. And he's like, Carlitos passed away, which was my brother. And I was like, what? Like he was doing better. Like what happened? And he was just like, no, like we lost him, whatever. And I was just like, oh my gosh. May he rest in peace, my brother. And I was just like, I became angry again because I was like, I lost out on that chance to meet him, you know? And it's not because at that point, it was no longer because I was angry or because I didn't want to go over there. It was just because literally financially I could not afford it. And so, like, I was just like, okay. So then that's when like my dad was like, my stepdad, my dad Carlos was like, okay, I'm buying your ticket, whatever. My brother had helped buy my ticket to get me over there, like for the services. And so when that happened, that's when I was like, okay, like this is it. Like, unfortunately, it took a death in our family for us to come together. So I flew over there, and I was like so nervous because it was gonna be the first time seeing my dad like on good terms. And it honestly was like the most satisfying experience of my life, because I was just like, this is my dad, you know? Like, I grew up, yes, I had my stepdad, and God saved us, like, or he saved us, you know? God put him in our lives, and he is just one of the absolute most amazing people in the whole entire world, and I will always be gracious and thankful for him. But at the same time, you know, I had one half of me, which was my mom, but I never had that other half. And so seeing my dad, it was just like, wow, like I just felt so cool, because, you know, you always have like a daddy's girl, you know? And yes, I'm my dad's girl, like my stepdad's girl. He's my life. But again, blood. Like, it's just an unexplainable feeling. And so, of course, and I'll show you guys a picture right here when we first like saw each other that day. It was very emotional. But so I was like, I have to ask him, like, I'm not gonna just like brush it under the rug now that like we've seen each other or whatever, you know, like I have to find out like what his story is, you know? So I did, and I was just like, I have to ask you, like, what happened? Like, why did you leave? Like, why didn't you, you know, try and find me? You didn't make an effort. Like, you just left, and it was like you tried for 5 seconds and then you just gave up. And so he gave me his story, you know, that he did try for a long time, but it didn't happen. And, you know, like, he understood that my mom wanted to protect me because my mom didn't want me to get hurt from him coming and going, you know, which is understandable, and I respect that. But for me to hear it from him was totally different, you know? And like, he told me, like, I was in a very bad place in my life. I was selfish. I was fucked up, you know, like I was doing things that I had no business doing, but that was my priority. And as fucked up as it is, you know, like, I mean, I pretty much already knew that. But again, hearing it from him, like, it was just like, wow, okay. So that gave me the reassurance, like, it wasn't me. It's not like he said, I can't do this, I don't want you, and I'm gonna leave. It was just who he was, what he was going through. Like, that's the decision and road he chose to take, and that's what he did, you know? So it was really good for me to, again, hear it straight from the horse's mouth and get that apology and get that closure from him. And immediately after that, like, I was just like, it was like literally a huge weight was just like lifted off my shoulders. And I didn't have any of that anger anymore. I didn't have, you know, hate, nothing. Like, I just let it all go. And it took a lot, you know. When this happened, I was 25, 24, 23, 22 years old. Or like going to be 23. I don't know. But so, you know, it took all these years of me suffering that way for me to finally like have that closure and have that peace in my heart. And literally, like, I swear to you guys, after that, I no longer have an ounce of anger. And am I still in constant contact with him? No. Like, he lives his life, he's still doing his thing, and that's perfectly fine. I have no more anger in me to put out there for that. It's like, I literally spent the first 22 years of my life that way, that I'm like, I did what I had to do. You know, when I first moved over to Florida, like, I just constantly wanted like to be together as a family, because again, I never had that. Then they had it for years before I came, you know, like they had each other. And for a little bit before I came into the picture, they had my dad too, you know, and they were able to spend time with him and, you know, get those years back. Or you never get those years back, but they still got to spend more time with him than I did. And I don't resent them for that, you know, like, so that's why when I went over there, I was like, hey, you know, let's all be a family. Let's all spend time together. Let's do family things. Because again, that's how I was raised with my mom and my sister and my tia and my cousin, that we were just always together. And with them, it's a little bit different. So it took a lot for me to get used to that. It took a lot for me to not make everybody else's anger my anger. Like, I just had to remind myself that I forgave him already. I'm not in that place anymore. So it got to the point, and it's to the point now where I'm like, hey dad, if you want to reach out to me, I'm here. I'm not angry anymore. You know, I don't hate you. Like, I will pick up the phone if you call me, you know? And I won't, you know, be mad or like, well, you didn't talk to me for all this time, you know, and all of a sudden, no, like, that's just not who I am anymore. Again, I'm living my life. I'm not sitting here constantly worried, like, oh my gosh, my dad hasn't called me. Like, no, you know, like, I know he's doing his shit and I'm doing my shit. Like, I don't have time to worry about that anymore. But I can tell you that it is such a satisfying feeling to feel that way, you know, because again, for so many years, I was so angry. And, it's just a really good and satisfying feeling. And I know a lot of people, like especially this day and age, a lot of people have gone through this or are going through this. And some people may never find that peace or find it in them to forgive their dad or their mom, you know, like, and I don't blame you. You know, I can't sit here and be like, oh my gosh, like, you're an angry person and you're this and you're that. No, because we all heal our own ways. We all deal with our own things. Like, you have your reason, I have my reason. But I can tell you that if you're wanting that, like, if there's that part of you that just wants to know, like, it's so crazy how when I started spending time with my family, like that side of my family, how much I have in common with them. Like, certain things I do like them, certain things I say like them, you know, like the way I stand, the way I sit, the way I shake my leg, that everybody hates that I do, but that's a Puerto Rican thing, you know, like we all just like sit there and shake our leg and everything shakes and everyone's like, oh my gosh, stop. But like, it's just little things like that. And so if there's a part of you that wonders if there is something like that from that side of the family, like, I encourage you wholeheartedly to go out there and find it. Like, if you need help or the courage or advice or whatever it is on doing it and getting there, like, I'm here for you. I'm all for it. Like, I will support you 150%. And if at the end of the day you're like, you know what, no, I can't do it, okay, cool. I'm nobody to force nobody, you know? Like, this is a process that I had to deal with by myself. I had to find it in my heart to forgive him, you know? Like, I had to do it for me because I didn't want to be angry anymore. And it's so crazy how, like, I was thinking before I even made this video, I'm like, I really don't worry about it anymore, you know? Like, yes, I get scared, you know, like, because he's getting old, whatever, and like, I worry, you know, about him. But at the same time, it's not like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to my dad, you know, like, I'm so sad and he hasn't called me, whatever. Like, no, you know? And even now, like, he'll still comment on my stuff, like, every now and then. And it's still a good feeling, you know? Like, yes, I'm like, oh, there he is, he appeared, you know, whatever. But it feels good, you know, to know that he knows I'm still here. And it's just, it's a really good and satisfying feeling. So if you guys want that, or if you need help or motivation, whatever it is, like, I am here for you. I will help you. I will talk to you. Like, if you need to find your dad, girl, or boy, whoever you are, I will become FBI for you, and we will find them, okay? So before I do my outro, I did want to mention another thing. When I first had moved to Florida, I think it was like the day we drove in, my mom and I went to go and eat with my real dad, his wife, and my sister and her kids, I believe. And so it was just like so weird to have my mom, I'm getting emotional again, to have my mom and my dad like in the same room at the same time. Because this was, so in 2016, which is the picture that you guys saw, that's when I had seen my dad by myself when my brother had passed away. And so when I moved over there, it was a year later in 2017. So this was the first time that I was like at the same place at the same time with both of my parents. Like, it was just so surreal. And I'll show you guys a picture right now of that too. It was just like another unexplainable moment. Like, to live your entire life, number one, without your real dad, and you finally are building a relationship with him and you're getting to know him, you know, and like you spent your whole life with your mom, but never with them together. Like, you never knew what it was like to have your mom and your dad. And so just that moment, like, it was just so crazy. And when we took that picture together and I'm like there in the middle, it's just like, it was just such a beautiful feeling. And I don't know if they'll ever understand how much that picture meant to me. But I am telling you guys now, and for those of you who have already been through this and have, you know, had both of your parents like at one time, like after not having them like that, it's just like an amazing feeling. So yeah, I just wanted to also add that in there. No more crying, back to being a bad bitch. Bye. Alrighty, so my face is beat, eyelashes are on, and that's the finished look, guys. Eyeliner, I use Clinique Pretty Easy liquid liner, if I can find it. Clinique Pretty Easy. And then mascara, like always, Telescopic by L'Oreal, bomb.com. Highlight, I did do Anastasia Beverly Hills. And for that, I did use my Morphe G40 brush. And then eyelashes are Eyeful Essentials. In Instafamous Mink Lashes, use code MAMII to get, with 2 eyes, to get $5 off your transaction of $15 or more, which is basically free shipping. So order whatever you want. You're welcome. Okay, so that is it. Thank you guys for joining and watching me cry and crying with me if you did. I like, not that I like when I get emotional, because that sounds like masochistic, I guess. But it just shows me, like, I mean, it just shows you guys like I'm just being real, you know, and I like that. I like to connect with you guys. I like to show you guys my true and genuine self. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, if you guys need anything, if this helped you guys, you know, if you guys have questions, whatever, please, please, please reach out to me. Like, do not hesitate. I promise. Like, I may seem like a bitch, but I'm really not. I'm like the nicest person you will ever meet. Unless you try me, and then I'll be a bitch. But anyways, do not forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. If you guys have comments, questions, concerns on what to do on the next video, please leave them down below. And negative Nancy's, you already know, get the fuck out. Y gente negativa, negativa, I can't fucking speak in Spanish, que se vayan pa'l carajo. Gracias.